Hi Vinyl community, and John here again. This is my second part to the records that I collected in the second part of the year. So this is video number 2. I'm going to start off by talking about what I'm playing now. This is The Undisputed Truth. And it's an album called Method to the Madness. I bought this in a town called Örebro, which was a bit more than an hour's drive away from where I lived in Sweden. And I actually went there on my birthday, my wife, specifically to visit the shop as a little birthday treat to myself. I thought I'd buy myself some vinyl. So that was in Banana Moon, I think the shop was called. Yeah, that's right. Great record, very funky. I have another album by The Undisputed Truth, and if you know their style, they have these sort of crazy outfits and the afro, like really big afro hairstyles. And they play this sort of very psychedelic, funky kind of soul, I suppose you'd call it. That same trip, I bought myself this on my birthday. This is Tina Turner. It's called Alive, The World of Ike and Tina Turner. There's a gatefold, so an impressive record cover. It's a double live album, just red on the inside, and it's really good. I really like Ike and Tina Turner. I'm not such a big fan of Tina Turner's sort of latter work, but the stuff that she did with Ike I think is just incredible. And if you've ever watched her, you can go on YouTube and watch Tina Turner how she was in her younger days. I mean, she's a real sort of dynamo. Had some dancing style, and just generally a performance. Put everything into it. I don't know how she does these days, or how she did during the 80s and 90s, but certainly in the 60s anyway, she was just incredible to watch. And that's a great record. What can I tell you about that? It's live. And it does a lot to sort of really capture her dynamic performance. I recommend that one. This is an unusual record. I didn't buy this on my birthday. It's just one that I picked up at a flea market. It's by a guy called Jimmy Little. I Can't Stop Loving You, it's called. And I think I got it around about the same time as I got the Feliciano records. And it's on Carousel. I was interested to find, because I didn't know anything about him when I picked this up to buy it. Interesting to find that he's actually an Aborigine, Australian Aborigine, or a descendant of one. I remember now. I'll put a little tag here if that's true, a bit of information. But basically, that's what he is, and he does this sort of troubadour music, much in the style of Feliciano. Nice record. On my trip to the States, I visited one of my most favourite record shops. It's a place called Grady's Record Store or something like that in Ventura. And I love that record store, I really, really do. It's such a laid back feel there. a lot of records to flip through and to browse. Very wide selection. You know, I never feel that it's just the same records all the time. Probably one of the greatest things there is the prices. You know, I would say on average, used records, depending on the condition and everything like that, but I mean, on average they're around about $4 or $5, which is pretty good going these days. I find his store cheaper than Amoeba, for instance. Certainly cheaper than record stores here in the UK, and Sweden for that matter. You know, but I always pop in there when I go to the States. Anyway, while I was there last time, I picked up this Brand X album. It's like a side project of Phil Collins, I suppose. Oh, it's got other people on it too, but I know them because Phil Collins played with them in the 70s. Yeah, I always think they sound a bit Muzaki. I should imagine Phil Collins, he enjoyed playing with them because it's a sort of technical outlet for him. You know, the extremes of the drumming that he plays is sort of beyond that he was doing for Genesis, I guess, at the time. But it is very, it's very noodly. It's very, I guess, music for musos, perhaps you'd say. Interesting to listen to, but I find after a while it starts to sound the same to me. Maybe I should listen to more of it. Maybe I'll get past that eventually. Also from that record store, I bought this. Oh, there's a hard time pronouncing the name of this band. Italian band, prog band. Premiata Foregna Marconi, PFM, I think was often abbreviated to. The world became the world. In a sleeve. They're a great band. I like their music, and if I understand right, this is essentially it's like a translated version of the original. I think the original albums were in Italian, and they've made the English versions perhaps to sort of hit the English-speaking market. One of the reviews that I've read from sort of real serious prog heads say that the original Italian versions are better. But hey, this is certainly really good. I mean, if you like this kind of stuff, you like Yes, and sort of some of the complex progressive rock movement, I can thoroughly recommend this band. Great to listen to. And another one of those ones, you know, you have to invest a bit of time into that. You can't just listen to an album like that and know it after the third or fourth time playing it. It takes a while to sort of start to get familiar with the melodies and things. Also from that store, I bought Faces. I'm a big Faces fan. This album is called A Nod As Good As a Wink. It says on the back, to a blind horse. Comes a little insert as well. Quite a big insert, I suppose. So I like the Faces. I've got a lot of time for them. Wow, that's cool, isn't it? I've forgotten that was in there actually. Yeah, the Faces. I got all their albums in the, I guess around about shortly after the turn of the century, and I used to listen to them in the car, and I would have the Faces albums on sort of continuous play for months and months and months. I was sort of completely addicted to them. Still great, I really like them, but it's fun to pick up the original albums on vinyl now. Yeah, incredible band. What can I say? Well, Ronnie Wood, I mean, he's all over these albums. Well, check them out if you like the Stones, for instance. You like that kind of dirty edge, rock, blues, lots of bottleneck guitar, things like that. You could go far worse than listening to albums by the Faces, and in particular this one was a very good one. And what else? Oh, I picked up this one at the same store. This is the album called Soap Opera by the Kinks. Chuffed to bits to have this one. I don't know about everybody else, but I seldom see Kinks records for sale, used, second hand. I don't know why that is, because they must have sold a few. They were a very popular band, but you just don't see them used. And if you see any at all, often the latter ones from the late 70s and 80s. But I don't think I've ever seen like early Kinks albums at all used, which is a shame, because I'd love to collect more of them. I've got 3 or 4 used Kinks albums from the 80s. Don't really interest me very much. This is from 77, so it's still fairly late. No, sorry, 75 it was from, and it's a great record. I think that you know, the Davey brothers did a great job with the music that they made. Ray Davies is a genius, I think, and I recommend anyone to check that out, especially if you like the Beatles. Some of the music that the Kinks were making in the 60s, I don't know how you compare it to the Beatles. I mean, it's great 60s pop music, well written, well structured. Ray Davies is, like I say, is a genius, and I think if you like the Beatles, you probably quite like the Kinks too. Another album I got from that record store is Ram Jam. I was surprised to find out how late this was. This came out in 77, and it's got the track Black Betty on it, which is sort of, you know, a big classic. And I just assumed that you know, that was a late 60s, early 70s track, for instance. And I was surprised to find that it actually came out as late as this, 1977. And yeah, the album sounds like it came out around about that time. It's quite hard rocky. I think I probably had higher hopes for this album. I thought it was going to be much better, but it doesn't do much for me. It sounds like so many other records that I've heard before. Still, nice to have, and again, one of those records that I may learn to enjoy at another time, in the right mindset.